Alright, let's talk about The Tomb of Dracula. This is issue 1 from 1971. This is actually released November 16th, 1971, and was cover dated April 1972. This cover art is by Neil Adams. This is a legendary series. It ran for 70 issues. It was a big cornerstone of Marvel's marketing at the time. There was a book and record set. There was all sorts of different merchandise for this, and Dracula himself became very, very popular. Of course, in issue 10, they introduced Blade, and Blade was popular, and then buried in the 80s, and then, of course, revived in the 90s for the movie. But Tomb of Dracula was very, very good, like very well written. These first few issues were written by Jerry Conway, but of course Marv Wolfman entered the fray. Gene Colan, I think, penciled the entire series. I could be mistaken. I've always associated this series with Gene Colan. Of course, this art you're looking at here is Neil Adams. But let's look at the rest of the issue. Dracula. So, of course, this is Gene Colan. Very moody, very atmospheric, a lot of line work to depict stormy weather and everything. So this is Dracula's castle. And the way this all begins, because there are so many different directions the story goes into in its 70 issue run. But basically, there's a person who is a direct descendant of Dracula and inherits this castle. So here they come. It's Frank Drake, Clifton Graves, and Jeannie. So Frank Drake is I think the blonde one here, and Jeannie is his girlfriend, and Jeannie used to date Clifton Graves, who is the guy off to the side here. And here is a typical tavern inn in this Transylvania area, and this woman here, the barmaid, is very reminiscent of a character you'd see in Hammer movies at the time. I think a lot of this is actually influenced by Hammer of the time, but also the Universal Monster movies, which depicted all the different tropes of this sort of horror in general. And you'll see that later on. So Frank Drake has inherited Dracula's castle. It's a bane on everyone's existence here. Everyone hates that castle. And of course they talk about vampires and everything. So this carriage driver will not go any further. He drops everyone off in the pouring rain. Far away from the castle, they have to make their way over. Clifton Graves, you see here to the left, is still jealous of Frank Drake for having a girlfriend like this, and wants to get back with her. Basically, what's happened here is that Clifton Graves and Frank Drake are in business together, but the problem is that they've run into bad luck and they're out of money, and they figure that this inheritance of this castle will boost their fortunes, that they can turn it into a tourist trap of some sort. And it's revealed later on that Frank Drake, basically his family changed their last name a long time ago. And what Frank's real last name is Dracula. He's actually a descendant of the real Dracula. So in this world, Dracula is real. We all know there's the Vlad Tepes legend and everything in real life. They are going to go investigate this castle, maybe turn it into a tourist trap. Frank Drake reads a bunch of memoirs that were inherited to him, and they talk about vampires and how Dracula turned into a vampire way back in the day and was subdued by a vampire hunter and has been subdued with a stake ever since. And so they all decide to go to Transylvania, and here is the castle. I love all this moody art. You know, I was introduced to Gene Colan with Detective Comics, I think it was 530, with Nocturna and everything, and there was more of this kind of thing. I love it. So they enter the castle. lots of flying buttresses and everything, and are attacked by a bunch of bats. And so Genie is getting wary of this castle, like of course his knight's armor and everything. And Clifton Graves is walking around. He falls through a floor. And when he falls, he discovers a secret passage that goes to Count Dracula's tomb. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is the real thing. So he opens the tomb. And inside, of course, is Dracula, dead, and subdued by this wooden stake. And I guess Clifton Graves has never really watched a vampire movie before. He decides to remove the stake. And in so doing, he unleashes Dracula upon the world. And here he is, Dracula. Gene Colan had said that he modeled Dracula off of Jack Palance. Of course, Jack Palance didn't have facial hair and everything, but I guess he just added that. But his mannerisms and everything was supposed to be modeled after Jack Palance. So here Clifton Graves tries to shoot Dracula. That doesn't work, and Dracula throws him into a pit. Dracula's like, there's people around in my castle, and I hear a woman's voice. He loves that, so he's gonna go up and investigate. And here comes Dracula in his bat form, and when he turns into Dracula, of course, he has his clothes on. It's just a magic thing. And so Dracula confronts Frank Drake and Genie. Genie has been hypnotized by Dracula, and Frank Drake punches her in the face to try and snap her out of it, but she goes unconscious. And so Dracula now confronts Frank Drake. Frank gets a silver compact out of Genie's purse. Dracula's driven off, and Frank Drake now has Genie and is trying to revive her. And in the village, Dracula is stalking prey to try and satiate his appetite. He hasn't drank anything in 1,000 years, so now he's going to attack this barmaid who's walking home from work. And he hypnotizes her and then drinks her blood. And so the village people, they encounter her and are like, oh shoot, these guys have unleashed Dracula. Like, we knew something bad was going to happen. So now they have their pitchforks and torches, and they're going to the castle, this very, very classic trope. And so Dracula goes to the recovering Genie in his castle, and is repelled by the cross that she wears. And Frank Drake then confronts Dracula. And the two fight. Dracula is subdued by some of the traditional things that vampires are supposed to be repelled by. And Dracula attacks Frank Drake, knocks him unconscious. The girl, Genie, she wakes up to see Dracula. Meanwhile, the villagers are coming with their pitchforks and torches. And Dracula then hypnotizes Genie into removing her cross and throwing it out the window. The villagers then break into the castle and try to set it ablaze. And while the castle's on fire, Drake wakes up and confronts Dracula again with the compact. Dracula is driven off with Genie, and Drake escapes the burning castle and sees that Genie is dead. But then Genie wakes up. She's a vampire now, and evil too, and laughs at Drake and walks off. And that's the first issue of Tomb of Dracula. Very macabre stuff, very gothic stuff. Really fun. In the mid-70s, Dracula was on an all-time high in popularity because of the Christopher Lee movies and everything, and people rediscovering the old Universal pictures, and a lot of merchandise around Dracula, since it is public domain. So this comic fit right in, and kids ate it up for another 69 issues. So I hope you liked going through this with me. If you liked this video, please give a like to this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Lots of great comic book stuff on here. So until next time, take care.